So what I'd like to do right now is talk a little bit about practicing in this course, practicing your public speaking skills, practicing in isolation at home, or practicing in front of a web camera and posting it to YouTube. Because doing video in a class on public speaking is a bit odd, right? The one thing that we tend to do when we stand up and speak in front of an audience is not there when we're recording these videos. That audience is usually not there. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the role of practice and the role of video in this class and how that helps us understand the skills that we're working on. And then I've got a few things that I'd like to say in terms of how I would recommend you go about practicing. So first, this whole idea about recording speeches in a public speaking course. Having a public speaking course where audiences are not physically present. Okay? Well, the way I look at it is this class is an opportunity to refine certain skills. And I'll come back to the analogy multiple times, but public speaking in many ways is like refining your skill with any sort of art, but specifically with sports. Okay? So if you like soccer or football, right, there is a need for refining the core elemental skills. In soccer, right, someone who can juggle the ball well is someone who has a dynamic control of the ball, can trap it, can work with that ball in multiple settings. Now, they're not going to do that in the middle of a game, right? They're not going to stop in the middle of the game and start juggling the ball. But they have skills that then can then be applied in the dynamic and ever-shifting nature of that game. Okay? That's what this course is. We are refining skills. We are isolating, honing these certain specific public speaking skills so that then you can take them to the actual speech setting. So then you can stand up in front of an audience and you can be better prepared. So, can standing up in front of a video be the exact same as delivering a speech for an audience of 20? No, it can't. I'm recording these speeches right now, and there are 2 cameras and 2 camera guys, but they don't look at me. So it's not the same. It's not the same. I don't have an audience to work off of. But it is an opportunity to refine certain skills so that when I do go out there in front of those audience, I can tap into that ability most certainly. Okay? So we're focusing solely on skills in this class so that you can be more dynamic in the game. You can be more dynamic when you actually have an audience there present. And I'm reminded of a quotation, and this is often attributed to Seneca the Younger. Seneca the Younger was a writer, Roman writer, philosopher, writing at the dawn of the Common Era. And this quotation's attributed to him, and I think that attribution's actually kind of pretty dubious. But if he didn't say it or write it, it's probably something he would have agreed with. And that is, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Now, I don't know what type of public speaking opportunities you're going to find yourself in. To be fair, you don't either. Okay? Those are going to arise in the future. So you don't know what opportunities are out there. But this class is going to work on that preparation. Okay? So that's what I see the role of practicing in this class being able to refine those skills. Now, hopefully you will post videos and get some peer feedback. Okay? But that's not the same as having a physical audience present. But because of that, I want to shift now and talk a little bit to some recommendations I'd make to you in terms of practicing your speeches. We're going to start with an introductory speech. I'm going to ask you to practice it. When we get into next week, we're going to be talking about the impromptu speech, and I'm going to ask you to practice it. So there's sort of 3 key things that I want to make sure that you're at least thinking about when it comes time to practice your speech. One of them would be don't restart. Replicate your mobility in the speech. And whenever possible, speak at volume. Okay, so first off, don't restart your speech, either in practice when no one's around or if you're recording your speech. And I say that as much as possible. Don't re-record as much as possible. I hope one thing you'll notice in these videos that you're watching of me is they're one-shots. I don't restart these speeches. I don't restart these segments. And I'm doing that as a pedagogical principle. There are a couple of times when maybe I've got a flub that I wish I wouldn't have done. But if I'm in front of a live audience, I don't have the luxury of saying to everyone, okay, forget the past 15 seconds. Let's take it from back when I said That's not a luxury. So don't restart as much as possible, because really what I want you to be doing is practicing getting out of jams, not erasing them from history. Because again, that's what you're going to have to do when you stand up in front of an audience. You're going to have to, if you find yourself lost in a speech, take a moment, regather your thoughts, and keep pressing on. So don't restart as much as possible. And certainly don't restart simply because you said or ah. We'll get to this next week. We'll get to this in 2 weeks' time when we're talking about the delivery for the impromptu speech. But the issue with ers, or ahs isn't so much presence or absence. Did you say it or did you not? So much as it is context. Where is that flowing, right? There have been, in every language since the beginning of languages, ers, and ahs. To suggest that utterance is somehow aberrant is a stretch at the very least. But we'll get to that. Don't merely restart because you said once. That's a performance orientation. We're all about communication orientation. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second, replicate your mobility as much as you can. In one of the upcoming videos, I'll talk to how you're going to set up your camera to shoot your speeches if you so choose. But as you're practicing or as you're shooting these, make sure that you're moving as you would in front of an actual audience. Okay? So you're not sitting down, you're not laying down. That may be how you run the speech in your mind to make sure that your memory's in check. But when it comes time to practice that speech, stand up and move around as you will move around. Okay? Because in so doing, you're just adding to your repertoire of speech and movements and gestures. Okay? You're beginning to associate certain hand gestures with certain things. They're starting to look more natural. So replicate your mobility as much as possible. And at the same time, replicate your volume as much as possible. Speak at volume. So if you're muttering to yourself as a way of practicing the speech, you're probably going to go faster. Okay? So make sure you're able to speak as loud as you can when you can. Now, one of the nice things about having a class like this in an online platform is you can access it anywhere. So, if you're in the middle of, I don't know, what would be horrible, if you're in the middle of 10 babies soundly sleeping, yeah, you know what, then don't practice at volume. I don't know why you would be in the middle of 10 babies soundly sleeping, but if you are, don't scream and wake them up. That's just rude. But so for the most part, when you're practicing, I want you to speak, as we would say in competitive speech, practice under contest conditions, because that's how you're going to get to know what works in that setting. So in your case, practice as much as you can at replicating all the factors that are going to be there when you stand up to speak. You may not have an audience present, but you can move around, you can speak at volume, and you can practice getting yourself out of oral jams. Okay, so just talking your way out of a problem. So that's kind of how I would envision you practicing these speech skills. But ultimately, you need to take these skills into public settings. If this class is to have an effect, you have to take these, we talked about soccer and juggling, you got to take that ability onto the field. You've got to refine these skills in the privacy of your own home, but then take them into the workplace and look and sound good. This class I want you to think of, and your practicing of these speeches, I want you to think of as a workplace space. You get to play with new techniques and new approaches. Refine those that work, discard those that don't. But if these skills are really going to take and be useful to you in a real way, you got to take them into a public setting in order for them to thrive.